What does Penn State even have going for them at this point in the season? Sure, converting a backup wide receiver to be your backup QB seems fun, but is that really going to do anything against a national title contender in Indiana?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Watch out, Indiana. Penn State has a new QB too. I don't really know what Penn State has going for them at this point in time. A player has left the team early. We're going to talk about all the storylines, preview this Indiana game on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host as always. Thank you to the everydayers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. So we'll get into keys to the game, X factors, give you my final score predictions. Penn State for the upset. What about Penn State for the cover? I'll give you my predictions later on in the show. Indiana is a national title contender. Don't get anything twisted. Oh, well, Indiana is they're on a hot streak. No, this is a legitimate, they're number 2 in the college football playoff rankings. This team is comparable to Ohio State, who Penn State just got demolished by. But we're going to begin with the Nittany Lions because this is a Penn State podcast. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Friendly reminder, as always. So Penn State got to catch you up on some things. Media saw what was described as a low-energy practice. Interim head coach Terry Smith begs to differ. Penn State, are they going to pull out tricks, pull out all the stops against Indiana? Because for weeks it's been, we got to empty the clip. Okay, that was against Iowa. That's what Terry Smith had said, meaning that everything is, no stone is left unturned. Every option is on the table. I don't know that I bought that because actions speak louder than words. It's all great to hear, but then it hasn't materialized. And when you basically raise the white flag at that point in time against Ohio State, it kind of shows where the Nittany Lions are at this point. But maybe things change. You go back to Beaver Stadium. Okay, that Penn State, the last time they were at Beaver Stadium, the final memory that they have was James Franklin being booed off the field. And then Franklin got fired, and then they haven't played a game in Beaver Stadium since. Now, I'm expecting a warmer welcome for this Nittany Lions team. They're not going to get booed. I don't buy that. But certainly this season has completely flipped over to this point in time. So let's hit on the couple of things that I mentioned right out of the gate. Is that, okay, the element of surprise. If Penn State's going to beat anybody at this point, maybe Michigan State, Rutgers, right? I'm not expecting them to completely lose out the rest of the season, and who knows? But this game against Indiana, it's going to be tough. So let's analyze the matchup. But what Penn State has going for them is that element of surprise, meaning that they can do anything. Doesn't mean that they will, it means that they can. Trick plays, fakes on special teams. Are they going to do that? Potentially, it's on the table, and you have to account for it. But we didn't see that against Ohio State, and to an extent, we somewhat saw it against Iowa, right? We saw some subtle differences, but we didn't see anything a complete overhaul. Penn State, for the most part, has stuck to its blueprint with some different wrinkles. Okay, so Katron Allen was made the official running back number 1. They wanted to go with Andy Kotelnicki in particular on offense, wanted to go with a 2-quarterback system. And why we're at a situation where Penn State is now going to play a backup wide receiver as its backup quarterback, and this player will get playing time. Anybody who's not a Penn State fan probably is, who is this guy? Why is Penn State using him as a strategic X factor? A lot of other people know who I'm talking about, and that's Liam Clifford. Liam Clifford. I'm not against it, actually, with where Penn State is, but Penn State put itself in position for this to happen. You lost Drew Allar, your starting quarterback, and then you think it's a great idea. Again, hindsight's 2020. You think it's a great idea when you only have 2 viable quarterbacks remaining on the depth chart to run a 2-quarterback system. So now Liam Clifford cannot get hurt at any cost. You also have to limit what he can do as a QB because he's actually somewhat of a mobile quarterback. I'm not here to say that he's a true dual threat, but he can move. He can pick up yards. He's faster than Drew. And now you got to make Grunkemeyer a statue for the risk that, hey, he could be injured and you're not going with Liam Clifford as your true overall quarterback for the rest of the season. Jackson Smolik, the quarterback that got injured against Iowa, is week to week at this point in time. Beckham Kritza, it was missed practice due to an illness, but he's been out for most of the season with an injury and has just finally got back. He's a true freshman. You can't put him in the game. And then you have Jack Lambert, and it's the kind of same situation. Little to no experience, no in-game experience. You're not going to throw him out there at quarterback. So what do? You go with your fifth-year veteran player in Liam Clifford, who never took that next step as a wide receiver, but he played some quarterback in high school, so why not? Why not? Just for fun at this point in time. It's a last-ditch effort because Penn State has no choice. Since the Nittany Lions are without one of their two remaining viable quarterbacks after Drew Allar was ruled out for the season, you're now in a situation like this. It's fun. It's interesting. It's going to be entertaining. Maybe, if it works. But Liam Clifford is going to be the Gadget QB, so to speak, against Indiana. Speaking of roster moves, personnel moves, Joey Schlaffer is now off the team, has stepped away from the team, and reports say that he plans to enter the transfer portal on three-headed first. As a former four-star player, I had optimism for Joey Schlaffer, and I bet Schlaffer had optimism for himself, but he rarely saw the football field. And that was one of the things that I thought Penn State had going for them, was just the depth. You had depth. You had depth at running back. You had depth at tight end. You had depth at offensive line. And we have never really seen that depth take over and give Penn State the leverage that it needed. Okay, Khalil Dinkins, Luke Reynolds, Andrew Rapplier, those are all good football players. That's why you're seeing them play at time. And it limits Joey Schlaffer. So I'm pretty sure that's why Schlaffer stepped away from the team. You know, I'm not going to speak for him, but he's not getting the playing time that he probably thinks that he deserves. There's no clear outlook for him in the future. This is not shocking to me, even though I thought, hey, you know, this is somebody that gives Penn State the opportunity. Penn State, they wouldn't talk about four tight end sets if they didn't have a fourth tight end. Were they kidding about that? I guess to an extent they were. Because I'm not saying they were declaring it, saying, yeah, we're going to run four tight ends, but you bring it up because, yeah, you do have a former four-star. You have a bunch of former four-stars, including a five-star in your tight end room. Yet Penn State never maximized its depth. At running back, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. I thought that Penn State was going to run two running back sets, a lot of 21, 22 personnel, maybe even some three running back sets, because you have all these former four-stars, including two future NFL caliber players. I know that's been reset. The expectations have been reset because Singleton has had such a disappointing season. But that's never even, same thing with the offensive line. Oh, the offensive line, the depth's best it's ever been during James Franklin's tenure. Yet, this was the first time since Nevada that we've seen those 6, 7 offensive lineman sets. We saw it against Ohio State. It was working, and they abandoned it. It works, and then they don't call it again. So what Penn State has going for them is the element of surprise, or just being able to do some things that are unorthodox here. Liam Clifford in a makeshift two-quarterback system. He's a mobile. He's going to be your Wildcat QB. And I'm good with that, with respect to where Penn State is at this point in season. Do something. Try anything. Doesn't really, what does it matter? What are you worried about? You're worried about missing a bowl invite? I say flip the table over. Flip it over. Play wide receivers that, well, they're not impressing us the way that we would like them to in practice. You don't know how it's going to look until you play them on game day. I understand that you see what you see in practice, but you just don't know until you play them on Saturdays. So for Penn State, flip the table. Run 2 running backs, run 3 running backs, 6, 7 offensive line formations, because that was working against Ohio State. Can play a little ball control against Indiana. Indiana's a national title contender. Do you really want to get into a track meet with them and try to outscore one of the best offenses in the country, potentially the best quarterback in the country? This is not the Indiana team of recent memory. This team's a wagon. This team's a juggernaut, and should be a common selection when they get to the postseason to win a national title. We're going to talk about Kurt Signetti and the Hoosiers coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Now let's break it down. It's difficult to put a spotlight on somebody, especially when the game against Ohio State didn't exactly go the way that it did against Penn State. But Kaytron Allen just continues to be a player that you can spotlight under these circumstances. He is giving this Penn State team every ounce of energy that he has. He is slowly getting closer to the all-time rushing record in Penn State history. 76 yards in a loss with a touchdown against Ohio State is still commendable, doing everything that he can to will this Nittany Lions team to victory. That is who continues to deliver, because it's about action. It's about the grit and the will to continue to fight when this season feels like a lost cause. And just like Kaytron Allen delivered for Penn State in every which way that he could, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order and stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, later on in the show, we're going to talk about X factors, give you my final score prediction here. Indiana comes into town. They're 25-2 against Penn State. It would be the first time that they ever get a victory in Beaver Stadium. Kurt Signetti does not hold anything back. I think this guy's relentless. So if Penn State is well out of reach, if the scoreboard's well out of reach, it doesn't matter. Kurt Signetti is still going to put foot to gas. It's just the way that this Indiana team operates. And that's why they're at a national, that's why they're in the conversation for the national championship. You would think, okay, let me phrase this the correct way. You would think that Penn State would be in this conversation with them, but obviously the season fell apart, right? This was supposed to be, at a minimum, a top 10 matchup going in. That would have been my expectations, especially with what we saw from Indiana early in the season, that, oh, this is going to be a great game down the stretch. This is going to define maybe who gets into the postseason, who doesn't. This might be the end of the road. Well, Penn State's end of the road happened much earlier. Indiana's going strong, and they continue to pave the way. Fernando Mendoza could potentially be a number 1 overall pick in next year's NFL draft. Let's start there. Indiana's number 2 in the country, 9-0 overall, 6-0 in the Big Ten. Kurt Signetti as the head coach with Fernando Mendoza as his QB. That's what happens when you make the right moves in the transfer portal. Okay, so you can see why Penn State's trying to go in a different direction, because it's figures like Kurt Signetti who show up at Indiana, right? And Indiana was viewed as a destination, as a school that, well, they're never going to be at the top of college football because they won't invest. They won't put the energy, they won't put the money into this program. Like a Purdue, a Northwestern, they're just never going to be able to compete in this age of NIL and the transfer portal. Well, Kurt Signetti changed all of that. And now, because of Kurt Signetti, you see why Penn State, you see why LSU, Florida, Auburn are all saying, hey, we're not getting to our goals quickly enough. We need to make a change. And it's because of Kurt Signetti. It literally is. And then you go in the portal and you get Fernando Mendoza. You turn him in from a quarterback with question marks. Hey, there's upside there, to a surefire first-round pick at the end of the day. Whether he's number 1 overall or not, I'm not going to declare that, but what I can declare is that this guy is a first-round pick for sure. Over 2,100 yards at this point, 25 TDs to 4 interceptions. That signature victory over Oregon, decisively, 30-20, a team that Penn State lost to. You can see why Penn State targeted Kurt Signetti early on in the coaching search, and why Indiana said, no, we are not. You notice that? I want to point that out too, and I've said this a few times now, that Kurt Signetti in Indiana got an extension done immediately. Nobody else has. And nobody else has drafted up an extension, especially when there are tons of coaches due for a pay raise. Is that because they're interested in the Penn State job? Well, to be determined there. But Indiana and Signetti took care of that agreement. Everybody else. is still waiting around. Why are they waiting? That's all I'm just trying to say. So Fernando Mendoza, stopping him is going to be difficult. As Penn State, as we saw with Ohio State with Julian Sayin, right? That's the category that they're in. Elite college football quarterbacks, top 5 in the nation right now. He's got a 2-headed monster at running back. It's nice when that materializes. Kalon Black, 619 yards, 619 rushing yards. Roman Hemby, 601 rushing yards. Those two, dynamic duo, and they both have an even split similar to what Singleton and Allen used to be able to do. And then Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. Surratt, though, is dealing with a bit of an injury. I wonder what his outlook's going to be for Saturday, if he's going to have any limitations, if he's going to be a full go. So Cooper and Surratt, though, why Mendoza is performing the way that he is because they have another dynamic duo out in the passing game. So this is an offense that does not let up. They will score at will, and I worry about that for Penn State's defense when they haven't figured any which way to stop. Primarily running QBs, and Mendoza can move. Mendoza can absolutely, I wouldn't call him a true, again, same thing that I've said before, not a true dual threat, but can pick up yards with his legs. And it feels like Penn State just continues to forget to account for the quarterback. So if they're not able to move the football effectively with Black, with Hemby, they're struggling to throw the football through the air. They're just not getting into rhythm. You do have to worry about that at points in time where Mendoza is just going to take the football himself just to keep the offense moving, just to keep the drives alive. Now, Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator, hindsight's 2020, but Penn State was targeting him this past offseason. They went with Jim Knowles, but Bryant Haynes was a target of theirs to replace Tom Allen when he left for Clemson. And you can see why. This is another top 10 defense. Penn State, the Hoosiers, they chase after the quarterback. They force turnovers. They are really good on third down. So they keep teams from playing behind the sticks, right? You have third and not so manageable. And Bryant Haynes will dial up the pressure as a defensive coordinator. He's been compared to Manny Diaz this week leading up. If you want to know what to expect from Indiana's defense, just think, for Penn State fans, just think about what Manny Diaz did for those 2 years with Penn State. They don't exactly have anybody that is Abdul Carter-esque, but they have some good players. They have Isaiah Jones. They have Hardy at defensive end. That's what stands out about this Indiana defense, is that collectively everybody does their job very well. So they're going to come after Ethan Grunkemeyer. And I thought Grunkemeyer, here's what I'll say in respect to Grunkemeyer. He's been solid for a first-year starter, a second-year player overall against these tough teams. He's done well evading pressure for the most part, standing in the pocket. I respect that about his game because that shows that veteran presence, that veteran poise that most QBs at this stage don't have. But Grunk, at least, is giving Penn State something. It allows routes to develop. It allows plays to develop overall. I do think Grunk needs to do a better job of seeing his reads, but he is going through his progressions. What mistake he's making in that process, I'm not entirely sure, but he is going through his progressions. He's allowing the play to develop. And he has a good balance of staying in the pocket and knowing when the play breaks down that I got to ad lib a little bit. We saw that against Iowa. We saw elements of that against Ohio State. So I'm eager to see when a defense actually dials up significant pressure like Indiana does. How does Ethan Grunkemeyer handle that? And that's going to be one of our X factors, keys to the game, and final score predictions. Does Penn State even have a chance? Do they have a chance to cover? Again, another national title contending opponent. We saw what Ohio State did to Penn State. Could Indiana do the same thing? We're going to discuss that next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today. See parts on your doorstep tomorrow with over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Well, SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, low prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, let's go in depth into this matchup. Keys to the game, X factors, what will decide this game for both teams. Penn State absolutely can get the upset here. It's not impossible, it's just very unlikely. All right, I'll frame it that way. So if you got a final score prediction, let me know down in the comments section. For Penn State, they got to win on first down. And if that's going 6 or 7 offensive linemen right out of the gate, which I think they should do, I'm going to tell you what I think they should do here, because I think it will lead to better results on the football field, with a mix of, hey, what should we expect them to do? But for the most part, they're going to run again with Kaytron Allen while trying to get Nicholas Singleton to the boundary. And I agree with Terry Smith. I know that he's trying to hype up his player. I know that he's trying to, build some confidence in Singleton. But I do think that Singleton performed a little better against Ohio State. I mean, it's been pretty rough this entire season, so anything, I guess, elevates my expectations there. We'll still see a steady dose of Kaytron Allen. I'm clamoring for Allen and Singleton at the same time, whether that's in Wildcat, whether that's in the backfield. When I asked Smith about it, he said, well, we got to do a good job of trying to get 30 to 40 touches for Singleton and Allen together. Why does only one of them have to be on the football field? Maybe he misunderstood my question at the end of the day, but I don't see why you can't maximize their abilities because if you have them both on the football field at the same time, those opportunities can go to them every other play. I don't see why one has to be on the sideline there. And you can make the argument that the best 11 on Penn State's offense includes Singleton and Allen together on the football field. So I'm just full of questions. I'm not sure why we've gotten to a point where you didn't maximize your RB depth, you didn't max your offensive line depth, and you didn't maximize your tight end depth to an extent. Part of that's execution. I get that. But when you have 2 superstar players, or you're supposedly, right? Singleton was supposed to be that this season. Allen has lived up to that. But those 2 guys should be on the football field together. If we see that in some capacity, I hope I can inspire some sort of game plan by saying, hey, maybe use both running backs at the same time. I'd like to believe that I have that kind of influence, but you will see Penn State leaning on Kaytron Allen, trying to cycle in Singleton to get him to the boundary as a change of pace kind of back. It's not going to be a true 50-50 timeshare. It shouldn't be, as Penn State fans and media members have been calling for until Penn State actually changed it. They were stubborn to do that. Then they did it. You have to find a way to build out the passing attack. Okay? Especially, now here's the thing, you're going to have to be conscious of short passes and screen passes, because if Brian Haynes is going to dial up pressure defensively for Indiana, you're going to have to get the football out quickly. So this might be actually a pretty solid day for someone like Singleton, because he'll get checkdowns, he'll get the ball in space. I am expecting a little improvement from Penn State's offense overall, because now that you've faced a top 10 Iowa defense, a top 3 conservatively, you can make the argument they're number 1 in the country, a number 1 defense in Ohio State, against Indiana at home, you might have you might have at least some tolerance for these types of defenses here, these types of opponents, because you've just gone through the gauntlet with a quarterback getting his 3rd career start. I'm expecting more points from the Nittany Lions on offense. It's what they do on defense that is the bigger concern for me. But in regards, I do want to finalize my thoughts with Penn State's passing attack. You're going to have to force Indiana to respect you in some capacity. I don't know, again, if we'll see Kobe Howard entice Denmark at all. Probably not. It's kind of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, because we've been expecting it for quite some time. So until I see it, I don't think it's going to happen where the snap counts change and Kobe Howard entice Denmark get some due playing time from my point of view. But according to the Penn State coaching staff, apparently they don't deserve more playing time. So can you get into a track meet with Indiana? And that's what I think this game turns into. Because I don't know how Jim Knowles' defense stops Indiana's offense. You've struggled to contain the run. Mendoza can use his legs when he needs to. AJ Harris, Elliott Washington, Davian Collins, as much respect as I have for them individually as football players, they are going to struggle. Like it's not Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, but it's not far off from saying these guys are close to that category when you're talking about Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. So I'm still going to take Indiana's wide receivers here. I said the same thing in my Ohio State preview. Good luck stopping Jeremiah Smith. Good luck stopping Carnell Tate. And you're just going to have to pick your poison at that point. All right, you sell out for the ground game, a two-headed monster in the backfield with the threat of Mendoza keeping the football. Then you leave A.J. Harris, Davian somebody in one-on-one coverage, and they're probably going to lose that matchup more often than not. So I'm anticipating a good amount of points in this game. Actually, the weather is supposed to be mid-50s, maybe a little breezy, cloudy. No inclement weather is expected. And again, if that changes at this point in time, okay, so be it. But at least what I've seen from the weather reports there, this is a prime opportunity for both offenses to get going. And that's something to say about Penn State's offense too. But I like that Grunkemeyer just continues. He's getting better. He's getting starts under his belt. I think Penn State is going to make those adjustments and say, let's commit to a stronger ground game. Let's have those jumbo offensive lineman packages. Maybe we do cycle in the wide receivers. Hey, we have a new Wildcat package with Liam Clifford as our backup quarterback here. So you're going to see some subtle differences from Penn State, but it's not going to be enough to outscore Indiana's offense with a group that is comparable to Ohio State. So I'm going to go my final score prediction. I'm thinking scoring. And again, Indiana does not let up. I'm going to go 38-24. I'll go 38-24 here. I think that Penn State, again, Indiana is going to push the pace. They're going to try to score. I think Penn State will be able to move the ball a little more effectively and find ways. And again, Indiana's so aggressive that they are going to get explosive plays from those quick passes. So for Penn State, this matchup actually sets up, at least in my mind, sets up a little more favorably for them in terms of how the offense can do. But that 14-point spread, that's pretty close. If this ends up being a 31-17 game, which is what the line is projecting with a 14-point spread and a 48-point total, that's pretty accurate. Okay, that is pretty close if that ends up being 31-17 at the end of the day. I just think with the gauntlet that Penn State's gone through, that their offense is just going to be better by proxy because they've been tested in back-to-back games like this. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Again, this game kicks off at noon Eastern time from Beaver Stadium on Fox. It is a big noon kickoff. It's also the helmet stripe game, so it is a whiteout with the blue stripe at the middle of the 50-yard line where the fans are supposed to wear blue. It is also military appreciation. Thank you to all the men and women out there who have served this great nation. And thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host as always. If you're new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. We talk about all of it here: football, wrestling, basketball, recruiting, a little bit of hockey too, you name it. It's all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.